I think we are all aware of the disturbing situation in the country, and to take us through the grievous and disturbing situation, human rights situation in the country, is none other than the president of the MDC, President Chamisa, to give us a take by the heart of the disturbing situation in the country. Over to you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, the Director of Information, Mr. Luke Tamborinyoka. I wish to acknowledge the presence of my fellow leaders who are here present, members of the National Executive, but in particular the Secretary General, Senator Douglas Monzora, our Vice President, Senator Komich, Vice President, Senator Nia Mzuri. Honorable ladies and gentlemen, I want to appreciate you for coming to this press conference. Some of you may not be aware why we have had to hold this press conference here. This is the site of the arson, the terrorism by people whom we suspect to be ZANU-PF. In fact, we have already indicated to the police on the people that we suspect through our security department. Nothing has materialized in terms of that investigation. This place was patrol bombed. We are going to be correcting the situation, but we just wanted you to have a first-hand account of the kind of terror that we are exposed to in the country. This is not an isolated event. Across the whole country, we've seen scenes of terror. Scenes of terror in the suburbs where people have been brutalized, terrorized, their property vandalized by people claiming to be sent by the state. We've also received cases of people having been raped. I'm sure you've read some of the articles. Again, by people who are doing it in the name of the state. And you are all aware that this is now 14 months after Mr. Mugabe exiting the political state. But what we are seeing is actually an escalation, not only of the Mugabe type of terror, but we're actually seeing something that makes Mugabe look like a baby in terms of terrorism. We've seen very serious and gory developments in the countryside, in the urban areas, of situations where there have been serious crimes against humanity, serious human rights abuses, serious internal displacement of people, serious breakdown of the rule of law, serious of violations of fundamental freedoms as enshrined in our Constitution. This position is not just a figment of the MDC imagination, but it is something that has been indicated by the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission in line with its constitutional mandate. They've given an annotated presentation of the challenges that we have in the country. Not only that, the Catholic bishops have also voiced concern about what has been happening in the country. We've also seen political organizations in the region giving their own indication in terms of what has been happening in the country. Just this morning, as I came here, and I'm sorry for being late a bit, I had gone to Mbai, where I had gone to pay my condolences to yet again another young man who was killed. This young man was not killed during the protest. He was actually beaten up as he was coming from work on Friday. And then he bled to death. In Pare, his name is Kudakwashe Kabanda Murongo. 22 years. He was working at Longchen. On his way from work at Copacabana, he was grabbed by people who had an army truck and people who claimed to be soldiers. And they beat him up. When he was beaten up, he could not even survive. He's being buried this morning at Zoro. That's where I'm coming from. And this is only but an indication of the extent of the problems. We have recorded names of people who have sustained injuries, people who have died on account of gunshots. And we have Kelvin Choto, age 22, of Unit A, 15078, Tungwiza. We have Abraham Nyakakoto, 35, of 34 7th Avenue, Bare, in National, buried in Zororo. Trimon Achiwe of Glenview 8, buried in Chimaniman. This one was beaten up by people suspected to be ZPF youth, but the rest gunshot wounds. Solomon Nyarua, Ward 6, 49, buried in Chimaniman. Tandiwe Nuwe in Epworth. Tinashe Kaitano of Ward 2 in Kadoma, age 20. You can see the age group. These are young people who had nothing to do with the so-called problems and violence, but these were just ordinary, innocent citizens. We have recorded close to, there's also a police officer from what we understand, and what is shocking for us is that there has not been any attempt by government to acknowledge these deaths. There has not been a press conference to indicate the number of people who have died, the number of victims that we have. And it's so telling of the intentions of government in terms of trying to hide what has happened. We've reported 844 human rights violations. Again, this is a report that can be corroborated by the Human Rights NGO Forum. The number of gunshot injuries, 78. Again, you can corroborate this. These are people who have not died, but they have injuries that they sustained on account of the gunshot wounds. We've had arbitrary detentions, in fact, which is a very disturbing trend in this country. An attack on the MDC, which is not premised on any basis. I've listened to ZBC, I've listened to certain misguided elements who continue to indicate that the protests that we saw in this country were organized by the MDC. We don't organize protests by proxy. We don't organize protests by Bluetooth. When we organize protests, we always indicate when we are going to be organizing those protests. We have not organized any protests yet, but we are going to organize protests in a peaceful manner as per the Constitution. And we will do that to articulate the issues that we have always said have to be articulated. But the protest that we saw, or the stay-away that was called for by the ZCTU, was a ZCTU action. It had nothing to do with the MDC. We don't organize a stay-away because what we want is to stay at State House, not to stay away from the State House. So this whole nonsense about the MDC having organized things, again tells you that we have a fundamental problem in this country. A whole administration that is determined to institutionalize a lie and deception, telling the very people who went on action to say that you were sent by the MDC, but they know that they were sent to do what they did in terms of their protests and staying away on account of Mr. Mnangagwa's pronouncement. The person we hold responsible for the anarchy we saw in the country is none other than Mr. Mnangagwa, who announced a 150% increase in fuel prices without any due notice, without any justification. He's the one who instigated citizen response. It has nothing to do with the MDC. It was not a partisan thing. It had all to do with the people of Zimbabwe. Yes, we do not condone any acts of violence because we have always been peace ambassadors, because we don't believe in violence. But again, we do not also condone the conduct of the state. Even if people have done certain acts that are illegal, they are within the law mechanisms and provisions to be able to deal with the issues that would have affected the country. So yes, we have now seen the targeting of the MDC. So far, close to about 43 of our MPs have been harassed. Some of them have been threatened. 6 of them have been arrested. 2 being released. We still have 4 in custody, being Honorable Chikwinya, Honorable Chibaya, Honorable Chimina, and Honorable of Redcliffe, Lloyd Kapiko, of Redcliffe. Those are the 4 we have in custody. I know that there's a bail application this morning in Masingo for Honorable Chibaya that is taking place. Hopefully he will be granted bail. But his crime and the crimes of all those who have been arrested belonging to the MDC is nothing but the fact that they belong to the MDC. Being in the MDC is being criminalized. Civilian politics is being criminalized. Being peace-loving is being criminalized. We participated in elections. The election was stolen. We were cheated. We did not respond in a violent manner, but we insisted on peace as a response. And we continue on that path of peace. But we see a violent crackdown of our provincial structures. They actually move around with a list of our members in the districts, in the wards, who have never been a subterranean or an underground organization. We do our politics openly because we are in a legal organization, a civilian organization. Why our people are being persecuted is simply because they belong to the alternative. This has not just been confined to the MDC. We have also seen citizens being brutalized. At night, people are no longer enjoying their freedoms because they are dragged out of their places of joy and entertainment, in restaurants, wherever they will be enjoying themselves, being beaten up. In Bulawayo, it has been extreme. In Harare, it has also been quite severe. All the high-density suburbs, we know of people who are being dragged out of their homes, being beaten up for no apparent reason. Some assaulted, some have lifetime and life-threatening injuries. We have also had cases of rape, as I indicated earlier on. This is what is happening. Now, under the context of what I have said, we have realized that we now need to take this matter to another level. What is it that we are doing? Appreciating, of course, the fact that this has nothing to do with the stairway. In Mbare, they've started destroying people's property, tax shops, where people are eking out a living, innocently and decently. They've also destroyed property in Chamisa, and when I say they, I mean those who claim to be from the state. Now, this has nothing to do with the so-called stairway or citizen action. It has all to do with a vindictive agenda to terrorize the citizens, but also to victimize individual citizens as a way of making them be subjected to fear and not being able to express themselves openly. What is it that we are going to do? One, we have said, as far as we are concerned, we are now escalating this matter to our regional bodies. In fact, our worry, as I'm indicating this move, I've already indicated this to our SADC leaders, that we have a crisis situation in Zimbabwe. We have a humanitarian situation in Zimbabwe, but I have not received any response. I don't know how many bodies are supposed to be killed. I don't know how much blood is supposed to flow on the streets of Harare before SADC does something. I don't know how many women are supposed to be raped before we begin to see the intervention of our regional bodies to try and help the situation. I've listened quite ridiculously to the state saying that people who have been raped must report to the police. How does a perpetrator become a source of refuge to the victims? There's no confidence. There's been an undermining of the confidence because people who are doing these things are doing them under the cover of the state. So we need another body that will be able to help us so that we're able to deal with these issues. We've also noted the impunity. Mr. Gomwe, who is known to have committed some serious crimes, I'm told was released after some intervention from the superior officers. We hope that this will be investigated. If it is true, he has to account for what he was doing. We are told that he was seen with a group of some people with unmarked vehicles in the high-density suburbs, terrorizing people. We want this to be sorted out, and we want this to be taken to its logical conclusion. So apart from our raising of this issue with SADC, we also want this matter to be addressed in the context of the international community helping us. These are clear cases of unleashing of our military on unarmed civilians. Citizens are defenseless, and what we need is obviously the intervention of the international community to help us in any manner possible to protect civilians so that there's a restoration of civilian authority in the country, of legitimacy in the country, and of the will of the people in the country. I want to thank you. I hope you ask some questions, and we can take some questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for that erudite presentation. I'll be taking questions. 3 at a time. Any questions? Yes.
My name is Dr. Joseph. There's a video of one of your MPs circulating where on the day of the protest he was calling for people to go and loot in the shops. What's your take on that?
Well, I'm also sure of that video. I can't comment about what I've not seen. I will have to see that. I will have to test the veracity and authenticity of that. And there has to be a correlation between what then happened and what you allege to have been said by the MP. But we know that there's a witch hunt, which hunt is meant to try and cripple the MDC. We're not going to take that lightly. We have our structures in the country. We have our constitutional rights, which we are going to invoke to defend ourselves in the context of peace and our own public articulation of our positions of this context. So, in terms of what you are saying, I've not seen the report and I can't comment about speculation.
Another question? Yes?
Yes, sir. I'm starting from the start. You're saying you're now taking the Zimbabwe crisis to the international organization. Does it mean that you've lost confidence in the national dialogue that you yourself have been calling for and that the President Mnangagwa has said he welcomes?
Well, I must say that it's important for the nation to dialogue, but I can tell you that there has not been any dialogue. If anything, the dialogue that has been there between the citizens and the state is a dialogue of violence. What we want is the dialogue of citizens and their authorities, but also we need dialogue of key political players and all the other stakeholders on the fundamental issues affecting Zimbabwe. The position of dialogue remains on the table, but we don't have another partner. Mr. Mnangagwa is not committed to dialogue. He has not indicated his willingness to dialogue. I wrote to him 5 letters, he has not responded. I've tried to send people to say we need to talk to save lives. Dialogue is important to be able to move this country forward, but there has not been any willingness. It takes 2 to tango. And I must say, the dialogue is not meant for Mr. Chamisa or the MDC to be in government. We don't want to be in government through any other door. The people voted for us. We have the people's vote, the people's mandate. But what we want is to resolve fundamental issues around reforms, around questions of legitimacy, around questions of nation building and peace building, including national healing, around issues of the role of the state security in our politics. Because it has become an issue. We now need to know the frontiers of our security sector in this country, so that politics is defining civilian politics. The military, the police, and the intelligence playing their constitutional mandate to defend the will of the people, not to undermine it. We also want to have international engagement on the table and how we're going to do it, and also the issue of economic rescue program. That is on the agenda. We want to have this as a dialogue. But again, to have dialogue, we need intervention to have people secure. Our people are not secure. Zimbabweans are not secure. Zimbabweans are not free. We now need to have human rights being restored, human rights observance, respecting of fundamental freedom to be respected. So the two are going to go hand in hand. We are still insisting on dialogue, but the problem is that we don't have any person to dialogue with.
Another person? Yes?
What is saying is a list of members of the MDC you want to question and are not available. What is the way forward to the MDC for those who are on since Richard?
Well, We've not seen any list. Now communication has been made, but I suppose that is a membership list of the MDC. It's clear that it's a witch hunt. There's no longer any issue of dealing with crime. It's now just an issue of victimizing the MDC, to weaken the MDC. I'm sure you've heard what they've been saying about the MDC and this Congress and their interest in it. They can't deal with the message. They want to try and look for the messengers. On this case, the messengers are the people of Zimbabwe and the citizens. We as MDC are ready anytime to protest as per the Constitution, and we shall. But this was not our action. This action was a citizen action. We associated with the cause of the unjustified and with the unjustified price increases of fuel, with the failure to pay civil servants their money in time, with the failure to understand and reverse the 2% tax that has been imposed on transactions. We've all said that we need to move to the removal of the bond note so that people are paid in a proper currency that makes sense, and we deal with arbitrage. We've also indicated that we need to have sound policies that have not been put in place. Let the people who have been arrested on political grounds be released. Let our soldiers go back to the barracks. Let our police do their duties. Because we have a police in this country, a police service. Why should we have the military doing what the police are supposed to be doing? Those are the issues we have been putting on the table. And to then have the list is only but a wish, which we are not going to take lightly.
Yes, another person? Yes.
Mr. Chamisa, my name is Chamisa from Zimbabwe TV. In years past, we've seen when issues like this happen, MDC has tried to approach bodies like SADC, and the response has not always been positive. This time again, you are saying you're going to approach SADC. What if they don't give you the response? What action are you going to take?
Well, look, we count on the international community to support our circumstances as a people. This is not an MDC issue. It's a people of Zimbabwe issue. We are not the only body that has approached the regional bodies, the continental bodies, and the international institutions. We have to continue to make sure that we give some kind of an intervention a chance. But if it doesn't work, the people of Zimbabwe have constitutional rights to make sure that they deal with the situation that is untenable if the Constitution is being violated. And those rights we are going to obviously exercise them.
Another point of clarity? Yes.
All right. Let me take you back to the issue of dialogue, Mr. Chamisa. One of the government officials said that there can only be dialogue if you recognize that Mr. Mnangagwa is the duly elected president of Zimbabwe. You check?
I'm not a liar. I don't want to acknowledge lies. I've said I will not recognize what is not recognizable.
So that means no talks?
There has to be talks. We are ready to talk, but we are going to talk about that issue as the first issue. It's a dialoguing point. Let's agree on that issue. Why are you putting conditionality? And why do you want Mr. Chamisa to acknowledge you? If you allege that you won the election, why do you want the endorsement of an individual? So please tell them to be serious.
Any more points of clarity? Any more questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
I
much.
hope that we've done justice to the issues that you wanted us to raise. But to say the situation is really bad, as you can see by virtue of what is here in Harvest House, but also by virtue of what is obtaining. You know, our leaders, Mr. Komich, has been led to court. He's actually going to court this afternoon. Mr. Biti is in court on account of trumped up charges. Many of our leaders, Mr. Chibaya and Mafume, who is the spokesperson, was supposed to be here, but is nowhere to be found. We've actually looked for him, we can't locate him, and I don't know why. Perhaps these are security matters. That is a worrisome situation, and you can see that there's a formula to the madness. They are not just targeting people for the sake of it. They want to cripple the MDC. But the MDC is an idea whose time has come. It can't be crippled. You can eliminate all the leaders, but the idea is in itself a leader. It will always subsist. and we are going to provide the leadership that is required. Thank you. May God bless you.